Back in the summer of last year, just like we'll do the summer of this year, I took a lot of your predictions. I said, pick the most serious one, the one you would bet money on, and I'm going to tell you what I think about it. Then we're going to lock it up, and we're not going to break it back out till the season's over. The season's over. And so it's go time. Start with the prediction we had about, this is, I had problems with this one. So the prediction that we'll start with is Bama has at minimum 6 guys with at least 500 plus receiving yards. I made this a 9, and I was right, and you were wrong. It feels good to say because I don't get to say it a lot. Jermaine Burton was over 600 yards receiving. Ja'Cory Brooks was over 600 yards receiving. The end. Next closest was Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's a running back, and they had 2, a grand total of 2. I think that will change this year, but who cares? Because I thought it would look a whole lot prettier than that last year. I mean, you did have Bryce Young after all. So even he could not make a legitimate receiving room out of that crew. Stats and Info, a.k.a. producer Jesse, has provided me with the following information. Bama's leading receiver had 677 yards. That's Jermaine Burton. That is the least amount of receiving yardage for a number 1 receiver at Alabama since... Hello? Anyone know? Bama fans, how far back would you have to go before you found a year where your leading receiver didn't even top 700 yards? 2011. And that was Marquise Mays. That's a little while ago. Next up, staying in the SEC for a second, but we're about to venture out of the SEC. Space Gator said UGA will not repeat because they're not even going to make the playoff. Bad news here. Bad news part 1 is I only called that a 5. I will defend myself vigorously in a second. But secondly, the bad news for you, Space Gator, is I don't know if you've seen the end of the season. So spoiler alert if you haven't. Georgia wins it all again. Yeah. And it is a total and complete annihilation. They so thoroughly splatter TCU in the national championship game, they play it indoors, and TCU's fans still get rained on. How does this happen? That's when you have your program going good. When you are slaughtering people to the point where they play with a roof over your head and you still manage to find a way for the opposing fans to get rained on. That's a true story. That happened. SoFi Stadium, beautiful facility. WrestleMania is about to be there in like 6 weeks. Belchie's going. It's constructed in Southern California because those people thought it would only rain straight down, and it did not. It rained sideways. Good old-fashioned sideways rain, like they used to have in Vietnam when Forrest Gump was over there. Fat sideways rain. So you're getting drugged by 50, and you're getting soaked, and no one dressed. No one brought a poncho. It was a sad, sad sight. There was someone by my side that night who made certain disparaging comments about certain TCU fans in a certain portion of that building, but I will not throw that certain person under the bus. But it's someone's daughter. It is someone's daughter. Let's move on. Maryland. Yes, we always find an excuse to talk about Maryland on the show. Or so I said, apparently, in this segment when we did it. Maryland will be next year's Pitt. That's the prediction in August. Maryland will be next year's Pitt, a top 15 team with Taulia Tagovailoa being a Heisman finalist. Jesse, I forgot about that second part. So that didn't happen. Here's the thing. Maryland wasn't bad. They had an 8-win season. It's just we went 10 steps beyond where we needed to in the prediction. But it was bold, I'll give you that. I put a 9 on this. And I said at the time, and I'll reiterate now, I think people forget Maryland is in the Big Ten. The Big Ten East. It's one of the toughest divisions in football. Pitt is not. There is a long way between the Big Ten East and the ACC Coastal. And we found that out with this prediction. Pitt, they had won the conference. They had a first-round draft pick at quarterback. They had the Biletnikoff winner and Jordan Addison at wide receiver. That's what we were calling on Maryland to do. And it was just never going to happen. And they had a good year, 8-5. They had a pretty good year. But it was not to be. Next up, this one got me a little mad. It got a lot of us mad at the end of the season. So the prediction from Dorina was Hooker for Heisman will actually be a thing. And it was. And it should have been a bigger thing, immunity. But the Heisman voters found a way to rip that from our clutches. So instead, we were left watching Hendon Hooker have a great season, a season that, in my humble opinion, should have warranted him a trip to New York City, as a finalist at least. But that didn't happen. However, this prediction was not bold, I thought. I put a 4 on it because I had remembered the year we were coming off of. I remembered that he was 7th in the country in completion percentage. If he was healthy the whole year, it would have been higher. Only played 11 games. And he was well on his way to doing all this stuff in 2021. So 2022, I just thought was going to be a continuation. It was, and then some. And I think what cost him ultimately was he had to play Georgia. And the other guys didn't. Caleb Williams didn't have to play Georgia. Hendon Hooker did. And I also think the South Carolina game, which kind of derailed Tennessee as a team, I think that cost him too. Because otherwise, I think his numbers and I just think his profile, his play, matched up favorably enough to get him sent to New York. But instead, he got screwed. We all got screwed out of it. It is what it is. However, I'm still going to count this as a good prediction. And also, this last one, I kind of mentioned this earlier. Michael said Cincinnati goes undefeated this season. I called the prediction a 9 because it was out of this world bold. And it didn't seem bold. Like I remember people pushing back on me on this. They were saying, how can you say Cincy going undefeated is a 9 on the boldness scale? They just went undefeated, didn't they? They went to the playoff. I think they were undefeated. Can't remember. Anyway, they had come off a playoff appearance. And I said, that's why. They were sending 9 guys to the draft. That's the stat I told you earlier. Only 2 programs in all of college football sent more guys to the draft than the University of Cincinnati did after the 2021 season. They weren't about to go undefeated again. Plus, they had a game at Arkansas in week 1 where they were going to be a dog. So it was derailed after week 1. That was as cut and dry as it was to me. I looked at just the week 1 game. You're going to be about a touchdown underdog in week 1 on the road. So this could be done by then, and it was done by then. Famously, that's the week where yours truly was suffering from good old-fashioned caffeine overdose. So I just had to feel my way around. Oh, I drink too much cold brew. I can't see. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video, and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me. That's how we keep this entire thing free.